What's up, Penguins fans? Happy Monday. It's October 10th, 3 days to go for the Pittsburgh Penguins before they kick off the regular season against the Arizona Coyotes. We finally basically made it. The offseason is over, I should say. At this point, we had a couple regular season games overseas this weekend. The regular season inside the United States at least kicks off on Tuesday with Tampa Bay playing New York, and then there's a West Coast game with Vegas playing. But for today's episode, we're going to have Evgeni Malkin of The Athletic join the show again for the first time in quite a while. But, it's going to be a full season preview for today's episode. We're going to touch on everything from the 23-man roster, bold predictions from him, impressions from training camp and preseason, who he sees potentially as breakout players for the Penguins this year, and so much more. So that's all coming up right after this drop.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. You can also follow the show's Twitter at Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen of the day. Joining me now is the man, the myth, the legend from The Athletic. Evgeni Malkin has not been on the show in, I should say about a couple months now, I think. But, what better time to come on just a few days before the Penguins regular season starts to preview the entire season. So, Jesse, I can't thank you enough for coming back on. I guess we'll just jump right into it. So Penguins announced that 23-man roster today. Some people were freaking out about Ty Smith not being on there. If you're asking me, I think he'll probably be on there on Thursday. I know I said it last week that I expect him to make the team. So I guess I'm kind of taking a little bit of an L right now, but they mainly only did this for cap purposes. It kind of reminds me of them sending Eric Tangradi down to Wheeling several years ago. I think then he came back up for the first game. Do you see a similar situation like that happening, or do you think it's going to take a couple games for him to come back up?
Yeah, it really depends. They don't have, and this is based off of the reporting of Rob Rossi, my good friend Rob. And by the way, before we start the show, Hunter, thanks for all the nice things you said, and congratulations to you on a year doing the show. Over a year now. Very, very great. I've listened to it. Enjoy it. I'm glad they have you here. Congrats. They're trying to trade P.O. Joseph, I think, is what they're trying to do. I think I think I question, Hunt, whether they would have sent POJ down if Zohorna had declared. I just kind of get the sense that, they got maybe a little bit spooked there, and they were like, ugh, we don't want to lose another player for absolutely no reason, right? And look, Zohorna's limit, right? His limit is, probably a fourth line player, right? I think a lot of people loved him because his nickname was Big Z. He scored a couple nice goals. I think there was a little bit more hype. We both said this on Twitter. People needed to calm down a little bit, right, with the Zohorna thing. But I do think there's a reality there to say, that was a loss for nothing. The depth in this organization isn't very good. I don't think they're in a position where, they have no bargaining power right now. Everybody knows the Penguins are in this position, so they're not just gonna, come, lining up to get a shot at P.O. Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they felt that Smith not having to clear was the safer play. They needed to get cap compliant. I will say, I just don't know that he'll be back by Thursday, right? I think he'll be back. I think that all indications are that the coaching staff wants him to be on this team. They think he's good enough to play in the National Hockey League. We all saw what he did in the preseason. I think it was, preseason, noting that it was the preseason. He looked good. He looked very good. So they just need to find a way to make that happen. I don't know that they'll put themselves in a position on Thursday, Hunter, where they say, hey, let's gamble and send POJ down and see what happens. I think they also feel like he's good enough to play. So until they find a solution, we may kind of just ride this out for a little while longer. To your point, until that space, opens up a little bit more and they can, maybe make a switch.
Yeah, the waiver wire is, it's been interesting. I definitely understand why they could have been spooked, but you look at it and Mike Riley's going unclaimed. Nick Foligno's not being claimed. A whole bunch of other veterans that have gone on waivers are not being claimed. So I really do wonder if POJ would have been claimed. That's just, just because Mark Friedman, they put him on waivers. Someone easily could have taken him, to be honest, because his metrics are solid. Good two-way defenseman who can play in both zones. And nope, no one decided to take him. So I think you made a good point that they probably didn't want to risk losing him for nothing, that they're trying to trade him. But also, could they be maybe looking to move a forward off this team if that's even possible? I don't really know who they would move necessarily. I know a lot of people have thrown out Brock McGinn out there. He makes $2.75 million, but the sense I get, at least, I mean, I haven't talked to many people, of course, inside the organization about this, but the sense I get, just me personally speaking, is that the coaching staff really likes him, and I don't think they want to just give up on him after 1 year. So I don't think that's the caps. I think if they're going to move some cap space or open up some cap space, excuse me, I don't think he's going to be the guy to go.
Well, and they have such a disgusting logjam defensively. I mean, you're that you would think the resolution is going to come from there. Now, that being said, Elliot Friedman reported earlier today that there's cold water on any notion of Marcus Pettersson being that guy. That was in relationship to a report stemming out of Vancouver. There was discussion about, Pettersson's name coming up in trade talks and potentially heading back up there. That does not appear to be the case at all. That was kind of shot down by Elliot. So I don't know if that means that there's a big no-no on Pettersson, period, or if it was just in the context of whatever that Canucks conversation was. But, that's worth noting, right? Because I think a lot of people were sort of pointing at Pettersson as the quote-unquote obvious choice. I never felt that way, just because I don't think there's really a player like him on the roster. And although he's only good at a couple of things, the things that he's good at, he's really good at. And he's limited, but limited in a way that this team needs. So I don't think that's going to happen. I wouldn't rule out the forward thing. I think the McGinn piece is not something I've personally heard a lot of scuttlebutt about, but that's my wishful thinking as well. The salary for what he provides you, and I think you look back at his micro stats last year with regards to how he, takes care of the puck with zone entries and zone exits. It was just unremarkable, man. It's just unremarkable work.
Yeah.
And I feel like the work that he gives you could be provided by a Drew O'Connor at a significantly lower cost. And that's the difference. And, I think anytime you're in a position, Hunter, where you're talking about $83,000 as available cap space, right? And you're sub 100,000. You need to start looking into those kinds of things, and you need to have those discussions. And again, to your point, I really do believe that Brock McGinn is a fine hockey player, but he's just very, I think for what you get, it's kind of bland, right? And especially when you're talking about a guy who's filling the shoes of a Brandon Tanev, those were loud, boisterous, heavy forechecking shoes. Frankly, we haven't seen anything close to that from Brock McGinn. So too much of a passenger for me. There's other players in the organization, that can, I think, ultimately, help this team a little bit more in the peripherals. And if, we don't need somebody coming in, we don't need to have a conversation about an 18 goal scorer here. But I think if you could just get somebody that can more effectively kill penalties, get on that forecheck a little bit. I talked 1,000 times last year, Hunter. If this team's not forechecking, it's a sitting duck. The way that the system works, I showed those highlights from the Rangers regular season games. If you don't forecheck in the system, you just get picked apart with a stretch pass. And I'm not saying McGinn is that, but I just feel like that element, there's more, right? There's more within the organization. There's more outside the organization that can help you stir that drink a little bit.
Yeah, and we're going to get to the forward depth a little later on for this episode, just because I wouldn't say it's as good as last year's, and there's definitely some interesting players down there that I do want to get your thoughts on. But yeah, I mean, McGinn last year just, double-digit goals, that's good. That's fine for a bottom six player. Penalty killing impacts, though, nosedived compared to where it was in Carolina. 5v5 impacts nosedived a bit. Just was not as good as he was the year before. And the Penguins, I think, were banking on that being the case again. They lost on it, and maybe they still like him quite a bit going into the season, but he's still definitely someone that I would be looking at. And, but going back to the defense real quick, Jesse, before we hit our commercial break, if Ty Smith is not up by Thursday, that means it looks like POJ is going to get into the lineup. And I think at that point, they're going to see what they have in him, at least for maybe a game or two. I mean, I'll probably get to see him by the sounds of it on Saturday when I go up to PPG Paints Arena to watch them play the Tampa Bay Lightning. That means he'll play with Jan Rutta. And at that point, it's kind of sink or swim. You've made the NHL roster, but Ty Smith is down there waiting to come up. He outplayed him, I think, in the preseason in camp. Just how big is this for POJ? And do you think, he's ready for these bottom pairing minutes after what you saw in preseason in camp?
Well, I think so, right? I mean, you'd hope. I think there's not a lot left for him to pick up at the American Hockey League level, and he's now become sort of, Hunter, one of those quad A players, right? Where he's too good for the American League, maybe not good enough for the National Hockey League. The thing is that one thing we know for sure is that this is a very friendly deployment to players, right? We've seen any number of defensemen come through Pittsburgh and be rehabilitated, air quotes, via this deployment. So he's also going to be playing with a guy in Jan Rutta who has played alongside Victor Hedman, knows what he's doing, and should theoretically dominate a deployment like this. So that being said, I think these are things you expect to have happen. What I look for POJ is the reads, switching on and off with defensemen, knowing what zone of the ice he should be in. Where his lane is, those are the things I think that he struggled with in the National Hockey League level last year. So that's where my mind's going, and my eye will be on him. That they're gonna, I think, start him a lot in the offensive zone, get him out there with the Crosby and Malkin pairing or trios, try to give him those quote unquote easy deployments. But when the game gets going, when you start transitioning from offense to defense, when things pick up speed, that's a different story. And deployment be damned. Your instincts and your habits take over there. So that's what I'm watching. I think that's where he's struggled enough that they haven't played him in the National Hockey League. He's been in those elements. And, we'll see what he does on that third pairing.
Yeah, and I'm also hoping, we get to see more of an offensive oomph kind of with him, just because, I think he was lauded as that kind of player coming out of junior and stuff. And so far, even at the NHL level, even I think down in the AHL too, just haven't really seen that big oomph yet. So I'm hoping to see a little more of that. As it looks like right now he may make his regular season debut on Thursday if he's not sent down through waivers, or if he's not traded by the team at that point. But still a lot more to get to for this episode of Locked On Penguins. Bold predictions, forward depth, goaltending, so much more. But before we get to that, let's get into Athletic Greens. So with one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, and probiotics to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all of those things. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, vegan, dairy-free, or gluten-free. Contains less than 1 gram of sugar. There's also no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while it's still tasting good. It also costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit. Also has over 7,000 5-star reviews. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop and a cup of water every day, and that's it. There's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, I'm back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. The show's Twitter is at LO_Penguins. My guest today is Jesse Marshall of The Athletic. By the way, Jesse, thank you for congratulating me on the 3 years that I've been doing this. It's crazy how fast this has flown by. I started this when I was a senior in college, and now I'm going to be 25 next month. It's just weird to think about.
You'll still be doing it. You'll have like a house, kids, and whatever else going on. You'll be shouting these milestones out later.
Hopefully next month or in December, I'll be up in Pittsburgh for good. At least that's the plan right now.
There you go. I've been trying to give Hunter people don't know this, but I've been trying to give you real estate advice But I'm only good for really that really southwestern area of Beaver County and into Crafton. If you're going outside of there, Hunter, don't ask me for help. I'm gonna be no help to you whatsoever.
Hey, I got a couple areas circled. Got a couple areas I'm staying away from just for many reasons. But switching gears a little bit, Jesse, on the forward depth, I think the bottom six is definitely still one of my concerns going into this year. I love the top six. I mean, there's 6 players up there who I think, in my opinion, should score at least 20 goals, if not a good chunk of them will score 30. One I actually have scoring 50 this year. I'm sure you know who that is. Bottom six, though, Danton Heinen, probably good for about 15, 16 goals. Jeff Carter, if he stays healthy, can score a little bit. I just want his numbers to go back to the way they used to be. Kasperi Kapanen is just a Genma. just a total wild card. At this point, he'll turn it on and turn it off like it's nothing. And then the fourth line, Brock McGinn, Teddy Bluger when healthy, Ryan Poehling, Josh Archibald, just a different kind of, fourth line compared to years past where it was good offensively and defensively. Are you concerned about the forward depth going into this year at all? Or do you think it'll probably be improved by the trade deadline or something?
Well, that's going to be tough, right? Given the cap constraints that they have. It's a concern for me is like where the goal is going to come from. Yeah, for sure. I think if you look last year, I'm like Brock McGinn had 12.
Mm-hmm.
Teddy had 9. I don't expect a lot out of Josh Archibald offensively. He might give you a Dominic Simone level of output without, I think, the good supporting analytics. So it's tough. That you mentioned how good the top six is, and that's 100% true. They've got to get more out of that third line. I think on paper, Heinen, Carter, and Kapanen is a good start. We've heard Kapanen talk about things that went wrong and not being happy and great, but the performance has to be in there on the ice. And what I think the frustrating part, Hunter, is that when he's not on and he's really off, he can kill your ability to possess the puck for long periods in the offensive zone. That stinks, right? And it's that like pull up and shoot from a bad distance, pull up and shoot high off the glass, puck exit the zone, break out for the team. That just kind of robs you of the ability to maintain any semblance of an elongated shift. You need your third line to be able to do that, right? That's their job. That's what they're there for. So if they can't stay out in the offensive zone and they're playing in the DN the whole time and pucks around, you've got a major problem. And I know that people don't traditionally or don't deploy third lines like they traditionally did, in the 90s and the early 2000s of like a checking line. But this day, it's all about just not drowning in the defensive zone, and I think what's happening with them. So, the Bluger Magic, I don't want to be slanderous here, but the Bluger Magic defensively lost a little bit of that, I think, with regard to McGinn coming in, Tanev going out, right? Zach Aston Reese is gone. The magic of that line, wasn't really there, and it's not good enough offensively, I think, sometimes to make up for it. So, I don't think Josh Archibald helps that. I mean, I'm sound like I'm piling on here, but that was, to me, a bizarre signing, and I don't think he necessarily even really meshes well with Bluger and McGinn. So that to me is a line with a bizarre identity, right? Like, what is that? I don't know what the identity of the bottom six is. I don't know that it's anything they can really address. It is what it is. I do think that the top six is going to be so good, it might not make a difference. I think I think back to what the Crosby line did, Hunt, in that playoff series before he got hit in the head, and the rate at which they were controlling the game. It's insane, what they were accomplishing out there. So if your top six is going to be that good, does it really matter? I don't know, but it's definitely a concern I have for sure.
Yeah. Also, before I keep going, that was probably the worst mispronunciation of a word I think I've ever had. Enigma, excuse me.
Right.
Don't know what the heck. I just had a case of the Mondays there. That is embarrassing.
I didn't even notice it. Whatever.
No, I don't want to have someone tune out over that or something, but a case of the Mondays for this journalism major, that's for sure. Anyways, but yeah, Jesse, I agree about the fourth line. the Archibald signing, it was so puzzling just because it was a day one signing. And I know I think Danny Shirey of DK Pittsburgh Sports asked him about, like, I think it was Johan Larsson. And he's like, well, no, but I can tell you that Josh Archibald's going to be a Penguin. And he just had this little smug look on his face, like, oh, well, haha, I signed him. And he just so proud of himself for it.
Yeah.
I just, had a couple good years earlier in his career, but since then, just not much there. His underlyings are not that good. I honestly kind of see this playing out as him and Poehling kind of rotating in and out when the team is healthy. And I'm not really sure what they're going to get out of Poehling either. I mean, kind of an unimpressive career in Montreal. Underlyings kind of had a hat trick in his first NHL game, actually, which is cool to that's a cool fun fact about him. But since then, the former first round pick just hasn't panned out. And I think Mike Sullivan's hoping they can unlock something in him, but just kind of seems like he's a fourth liner and that's it.
Oh, I think that's it. Yeah, I mean, I think he is at his best. In addition to your fourth line, overall, there's potential, I think, for him in his defensive game. I think he proved in the preseason he's got a little bit of energy and can fit into the forechecking system. It's kind of like an incomplete sample of things that are going on with him. But I like what I've seen so far. I like what I think, frankly, I hope we get to see a little bit more of him. Because again, traditionally he's been discussed as being really strong defensively. And if that's the case, you would think there would be a harmony there with Teddy Bluger, which is something I think is worth exploring for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think, just if they really want a full defensive fourth line, having Poehling on there, I think makes more sense than Archibald. I mean, I just don't know how much goal scoring he's going to provide you. I mean, if it's going to be more than Archibald or something like that. What I think they should do is just have Drew O'Connor up there because I think he's better than both. But sadly, he did not make the team, and he's going to start the season down at Wilkes-Barre. But honestly, with how this team is so banged up all the time, I honestly just expect him to be up there within 2 weeks or something.
Yeah, they built the arena on the site of the former West Penn Hospital. It's cursed land, Hunter.
Yes.
That's just the reality of the situation. I've said this multiple times. It's cursed land.
It is.
And I don't know what we're going to do about that, but just have good depth, I guess, right?
It is. Now,
can't have a seance or anything that I'm aware of. I don't know anyone who does that. I'm not aware of anyone who hosts seances or exorcism. There's a church at the top of the hill. When you're in town Saturday, stop up there and ask them if they're willing to come down and do a quick cleanse.
Yeah, I will definitely add that. It also doesn't help that they lost the final game at Mid-Mellon Arena history. Maybe that's just like the Igloo is just giving PPG Paints Arena a curse for that or something. I don't know.
Could be. Yeah. Who knows?
Moving gears a little bit, Jesse, are you on the Jason Zucker redemption tour this season? Because I surely am. I think, he looked great in the preseason, looked great in training camp. And I said this on the podcast a couple weeks ago. I probably said about 3,000 times. One of my bold predictions is that he's going to score 20 to 25 this year, if he stays healthy, of course. But I'm fully on board. I think he's getting a lot of minutes with Malkin and Rust will do wonders for him. He's one of the team's best forecheckers. I think he is also a player that can go to the dirty areas of the net and get some greasy goals. What are your thoughts on our nice Jewish boy going into this season?
Played injured against the Rangers, and I thought looked fine doing so, which is a tough ask. We kind of have, I think, the stars have never aligned for Jason Zucker in his time in Pittsburgh. Part of that has been, obviously like being chronically injured, which is something he's had to deal with. And then I think part of that is just, having times of posting historically low shooting percentages, and having just some vanilla supporting data. It's not all been there. And I think that he's going to have the opportunity, it looks like, to play with Evgeni Malkin and Brian Rust. Those two traditionally are just behemoth level when they're together, and everything they touch turns to gold. So you would assume that is like a ripe sort of environment for him. I go back to the goal he scored in the overtime of the preseason game a couple weeks ago. That was a good sign because it was him driving to the net, right, and getting to a scoring area, and then letting chance play in his favor, which I think is something you like to see if you're looking for positive signs. coming in healthy, showing a nose for the net. I think a lot of us are in the boat of like, hey, this is the point where it really is going to come together finally, and we're going to see it click. This is a good player. I know that he's been maligned in Pittsburgh and it hasn't gone the way any of us kind of had expected it to, especially him. But this is a good player that has abilities that I think make him a Raquel-like presence on the second line, where we've talked about like Raquel being a space creator and getting to open areas of the ice and getting in the boards, et cetera, et cetera. Zucker, look at his forechecking ability. We look back at that Ranger series, Hunter. He was one of the best forecheckers the Penguins had.
Doing that on one leg, by the way.
On one leg, yeah. So you would think that that's a harbinger of good things to come. I like what he brings. I think, again, I'm going to talk about forechecking the whole duration of the show because I do think it's that important for the Penguins. That is an element that I look forward from him. And I think that it's a critical role, Hunter, for that line. And I know we'll get into Jeff Petry, but if you think about a lot of things seem to come together here to take the burden off of Evgeni Malkin of carrying that puck in all the time. And I think that's good. I think if you think of it this way, Hunter, I said this on Dying Alive with Pat Damp today. If Gino's not the one carrying the puck in, Pat, he's the one, or Hunter, he's the one getting the pass. Right? He's the one getting the pass. If he's not carrying the puck in, you're setting him up when you cross the blue line. And I think he's just surrounded by guys, defensively and offensively, that are going to help him this year to do that. And I think that bodes well for his scoring rates. I think it bodes well for the rate at which the team can break the puck into the zone. I mean, it's just, it's a totally different dynamic for me than it was in the past. I think all of these elements create, perhaps, shall we say, this is going to make it sound, I don't want to paint a picture, Hunter, of, Malkin is this irresponsible puck carrier who can't get it done anymore. No, I think he was just in an environment where he felt he needed to do it. He didn't have the supporting cast. It didn't seem like John Marino was interested in it for a really long time. Marcus Pettersson doesn't do that well, right?
No.
That was kind of the environment that he was in. And I think it's a different one now, one that hopefully spreads that wealth around. And if they can create more elongated shifts, look, Evgeni Malkin spending more time in the offensive zone, you're never going to get me to agree that that's a bad thing. So I look forward to that. I look forward to that line elongating their shifts and being more of a threat for longer periods, and taking a bigger control over that expected goal share.
Yeah, I mean, that would be obviously great. And you did mention Jeff Petry. We're actually going to get into him, but right after these few messages here. All right, we're back here on this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I'm your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Excuse me, the show's Twitter at @LO_Penguins. So, Jesse, yes, you did mention Jeff Petry, big acquisition over the offseason from Mike Matheson, a player who I definitely think they did not want to trade. Sounds like they wanted to put someone else in that deal, I think it was Pettersson and Bluger, from what I read from Josh Yowie, and that kind of stuff. But I think that deal is going to really affect Evgeni Malkin in a great way, because Petry's going to be playing a lot of minutes with him. And, you think about these last few years when Malkin's been on the ice, who have been the defensemen that have been trying to give him the puck? John Marino, good defensively, offensively, not all the way there yet. Marcus Pettersson, good player, but, he's not that guy too. Go back a couple years, got Justin Schultz, or the corpse of Justin Schultz at that point. Jack Johnson wasn't any good. He's kind of had it really rough just because, who's playing the most minutes with Sidney Crosby? Brian Goodwin and Chris Letang, just because, Sid gets those minutes with Letang. That's just how it works. But this year, it's going to be a bit different. Petry's probably going to get a lot of those minutes. Just how much is that going to be a big factor in getting, Malkin to, stay at a point per game rate and, just having a really strong year?
I think it's going to be, again, a huge help. I think it changes the entire way puck distribution works for that group. and how they choose to break the puck out of the zone and what their options look like. That's a big win for me. I think as far as the dynamic goes, last year I think a lot of people made a big poo poo about, well, it was a down year for Jeff Petry. It was this, that, and the other. That's true. It was his on ice shooting percentage and some of his offensive peripherals were the worst they had been in a while. Things did change when Martin St. Louis came in and kind of took the top off of that Ducharme system and opened it up a little bit more, which is good because that's what the Penguins do, right? So you kind of think that that's a good fit. It's a big switch for him. I think systematically this will be a big change, but I'm excited about it for him. I think it's a good fit. These are going to be some of the more talented players he's played with in a while. No shot to the Canadians. It's a totally different dynamic, and I think again I go back to this to the breakout and what he does and what his strengths have traditionally been on the breakout. It unburdens some of those forwards, and here's one more thing I'll throw at you too. When you talk about John Marino, John Marino is actually pretty decent at getting the puck out of the zone.
Oh.
He didn't do it at a great rate, but when he did it, he did it well. Where he really, I think, lost it was providing offense for that line in the offensive zone, pinching in. I wrote an article last year with video examples of him being, 1.5, 2 seconds late to his reads. And that's not Jeff Petry will not be late to those reads. I think if anything, he's really going to be driving them and creating even more opportunities offensively. So I look forward to it. I think it's a great dynamic. It's a great fit for him to kind of join this team's final sort of run is the window. We wonder how long it stays open, but it's one move that I think Hextall made that he and Rutta will certainly provide a little bit more oomph in front of the net, and not in a bad way, excuse me, not in like a, me hit you overhead bonk, Kevin Hatcher style of defense. It's just more of like, finesse, physicality and providing in other areas too. So I think that's a good change for the Penguins. So this to me is one of the more exciting parts of going into this year is seeing how this group comes together and what the dynamic of this defensive six plays out to be, because there are some very good players in here. I mean, I go back to Jan Rutta, right? This is a guy who's playing with Victor Hedman, and you're using him on your third pairing as sort of like the rock there, right? That he should eat that alive. He really should. And I think that, regardless of who the partner is on the other side, there's potential for him to really feast there. So I'm looking forward to the maturation of this group moving forward.
Yeah, and I really do think Petry's going to be a good addition to even the defensive side of the ice. I definitely think the management group, they saw what happened in Game 7 where, Marino had that horrific turnover that led to the Zibanejad goal. And honestly, if Petry's on the ice right there, he probably whacks that thing around the boards. Like, I think Marino probably should have done it with Rutta. They wanted more size in front of the net, as you said. They didn't feel like they had enough oomph there just because, some of their defensemen just weren't as good in front of the net, so they went out and got him. Some people questioned it, but he's had good underlyings in Tampa Bay. You're right. Playing with Victor Hedman is no slouch. He's one of the 3 best defensemen in the league, and he put up good numbers with him. So he should, no matter who he's playing with, Ty Smith, P.O. Joseph, Mark Friedman, if he's called up at some point, he should be able to really destroy those guys. I'm excited to watch him this year, just because I didn't really watch a lot of him when he was in Tampa Bay. I would always, of course, watch Hedman on that pairing because it's Victor freaking Hedman. But, Rutta, right, solid defensive player who, I think he contributed more than one way this season. Switching gears a little bit, Jesse, one thing I did notice that they were doing during the preseason in a training camp, they were experimenting with the penalty kill a little bit. And that included Kasperi Kapanen on that top unit. And I think that's something that I've been advocating for a lot during the offseason. He was great at it in Toronto, especially I believe that 2018-19 season in the playoffs against Boston. I think he had a goal or two during the regular season. He had numerous goals, and it looked like he seemed to be a natural fit during some of the preseason games. Do you think that could be a way to really kickstart him a little bit this season, just because he struggled mightily last year, no matter the situation he was in?
I think that this is more about trying to find players that can execute the penalty killing structure more effectively on the penalty kill. They run what's basically referred to as like a diamond, right? That's their structure. It's pretty common penalty kill at any level of the game. But the top 3 players on the diamond, sort of like the top triangle players, the points sort of jut out and attack the power play, right? These are like the active sort of arms of the penalty kill that go out, and they really are about disrupting whatever it is the opponent's trying to do. They take the pressure to the puck carrier at the wall and at the point and stay engaged angularly in their attacks. They don't go out and finish checks on her, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to just make people uneasy and keep the puck on the perimeter, keep it moving, right? They were just late to that last year. I think as the year went on, as the power play kind of like lost its effectiveness, you watch the save percentage go down too at the same time. And I think that those two things go hand in hand. I don't think the goalies suddenly got worse at saving the puck on the penalty kill. I think that the penalty killers got worse at keeping the puck outside for the goalies. And it's not a surprise to consider Tristan Jarry having a ridiculous, if you go back, I
I
think
was gonna
2
say,
years
yeah.
ago, his
Mhm.
save percentage in shorthanded situation was .870. Last year, through the first like 80 minutes and some change, it was like over 95%.
He was bailing them
So it
out
was
a
a
lot.
total, yeah. But I don't think that he was bailing them out
Okay.
on her. I think that they were giving him easy
Okay.
opportunities. And I think what you got out of it was like a penalty kill who was keeping everything to the outside. They were keeping all the chances low percentage. And that's Tristan Jarry should save 95% of those shots, right? Like that makes sense. I think as it went down, as his play, as the save percentage declined, so did the quality metrics of what they were allowing against them. It went the opposite way. So I think the goal is to get players into those positions, Hunter, that can quickly, and Kapanen can do it. I mean, the guy's got legs and he has a good burst. He's very good at accelerating. That's what they need from him, is go out there and just go hard for 5-6 strides and force that guy to move the puck, right? Then get back, get in your position, and wait till that guy gets the puck and get it. Boom, 5-6 strides, go attack him. They should have an internal clock that ticks pressure, pressure, pressure. Okay, back off, and that's going to help. So I think that they're really just looking to get that jolt of energy kind of infused back into that penalty kill, because again, much like the 5-on-5 structure, if that element's not there, if you're not kind of cranking that penalty kill and getting those guys active, you're just going to get picked apart, and people will make you look silly.
And you saw that in the playoff series, Jesse. They were kind of playing, I wouldn't even say they were playing aggressive. They were passive against the Rangers, just letting Adam Fox do what he wants at the point. And he was just picking them apart,
Right.
going to Chris Kreider, going to Panarin, going to Zibanejad. And I was just like, that was not the same unit that I thought I saw during the regular season. It was just they were giving them way too much time and space. I guess that's what I'm worried about going into the regular season. I just don't want that to be the norm against all the other teams. I get that the Rangers have a top power play. Don't get me wrong. It was one of the main reasons why they got to the conference final last year and almost got to the Stanley Cup final. But, that's not the way I want to see them penalty kill, just because it was unlike anything I'd ever seen going back to the regular season.
Yeah. So, I think at the end of the day, it's that structure that, I also wonder too, something for us to keep an eye on. I think all of us to keep an eye on, like the first 2 weeks of the season, is do they throw something completely different at us? Like, do we go out and like see the Penguins run like a box penalty kill? Do they change it up? Have they gotten new personnel in there because they plan on doing something different? We just haven't seen it yet. That's kind of like a cool possibility as well, that I think is worth mentioning, because there's a chance that they don't even do the same thing as they did. And maybe we're seeing some of these players in here because, they're changing the focal point. So, the beginning of any season, I don't care like who you're a fan of or what team you're watching, is always fun, because you try to figure stuff like that out and you try to watch and say like, is this different? Are they doing anything different? Does the structure look different? I think it's fun to. I think the other question I'll ask you, specific to the personnel on the penalty kill, and this is a rhetorical question, but do they need to get more aggressive in the neutral zones? Are they a little too passive with what the other team is doing when they're on their controlled breakout. What does that pressure look like? Is that different? Do they have more pre-snap movement, so to speak, where like they're trying to confuse the breakout, or they're taking away and giving away lanes? I don't know. I think that we've seen enough to know that when the lanes aren't there and you're at the perimeter, historically, you're going to get a good performance out of your goaltending.
Yeah.
So finding that again, I think is the challenge. We see teams like, I think generally sometimes get found out, and sometimes I think teams can manipulate. There's not a ton of penalty killing systems in this league. They're all kind of recyclable. So I think sometimes you just have to change it up just to keep people guessing and keep them on their toes and make the tape look different.
Yeah, I mean, that's all great points. And, I mean, sometimes, I was watching, especially in the playoff series, they would just let the Rangers just come in the zone really easily and then just kind of, again, back off a little bit. I'm like, they weren't being as aggressive as I thought they would be in the neutral zone. And, it's funny because when I watched the Penguins on the power play in that series, they were having a hard time even getting the puck, I felt like, in the offensive zone. Just kind of like a weird 180, I guess, in a way.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely going to add that to my list, Jesse. Just kind of maybe some systematic changes that Mike Sullivan wants to make at the beginning of the season to the special teams units, even his 5-on-5 play. But the vibe check, I think, will be back this year. I think
100%. No, we're not getting rid of the vibe check. If this system is the same, the vibe check has to live on because I think it really does paint the picture for what's going to happen for the rest of the evening. Although we've seen them like mid-game just decide to start forechecking too. So that's the thing with this group, Hunters. They've been around the block, man. Like they know what's going on. They know when to exert their energy, right, and when not to. And the difference between a Tuesday night game in November and game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, it's pretty distinct. So that's the other piece to this too. Is I think like we've even seen them adapt and adjust in game, or that light bulb goes off and they're like, okay, like time to get it together. I guess that's the luxury of having won, 3 Stanley Cups, having that sense for the game and knowing, when the time is right.
And every year without fail, you always see some fans just freaking out at the beginning of the season and stuff. And, I'm sure you will see that this year just because look at the October schedule. It's bad. They have a massive road trip right before Halloween, Columbus, then they go out to Western Canada. They have a ton of other road games in this month. I would not be surprised if they're honestly around 500, a little below, and people are going to freak out. But they hit a hot streak. Usually, when December rolls around, I think last year they won 7 or 8 around that time. Everything will be fine. They know, as you said, when to really bring it and when to not really bring it, which is usually like a Tuesday night February game against the New Jersey Devils or something like that. So,
right.
They will be fine, I think, with regards to that. I'm going to have you hit me with some bold predictions here. Jesse, you got any to throw at me on the show? I had a couple, I think 3 or 4 a few weeks ago on the show here that I put out there. I'm going to give the floor to you. What do you got?
I'll tell you what, man, I am in the same boat as you. I think Jake Guentzel is going to score 50 goals this year. I think he's got a healthy Sidney Crosby. Not that really makes a difference, but you saw what they just did in that preseason game. Like they're thinking 3D chess level already. I love the Raquel edition. He's going to get the power play time. I think he's going to do it. I just, last year, the circumstances, 84 points is a great year. He still scored 40 goals, 44 assists. But this year to me, I think scoring, even though it might go down a little bit as a result of the schedule and the way things are shaking out that way, I have a hunch, man. I just think he's gotten bigger again. He's got a little more size. He's going to be tougher to move. I know 10 goals is a lot of goals, Hunter. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of goals, right? I don't know. I'm sticking with it. I think he's going to put 50 in and learn a little bit more towards his own shot this year and maybe lean on that a little bit more.
Would always love to see that, and hopefully he can be one of only a few players to hit 50. You got any other ones? Probably my boldest one that I'll give you that I shared on the show a couple weeks ago. Tristan Jarry is going to be a Vezina
He just
finalist at the
stole
end
it,
of the year.
man. Well, no, I'm not going that far.
That is my
I don't know
boldest
about
one.
that.
I have a Vezina finalist for him, but I want to see what yours is for him.
I have him as one of the top third goalies in the league easily.
Mm.
I would say maybe like if we look at a raw stat, Hunter, like goals saved above average, or something that's like neutral to the team, I would say like maybe he finds himself like 5th, 6th in the league. I wouldn't be shocked by it. Dom assigns a really high value to him in terms of the preseason prediction. His model, Micah's model is very friendly to him. Algorithmically speaking, math believes it's going to be a good year for Tristan Jarry. The eye test from last year, I think, says it's going to be a good year for Tristan Jarry. So I wouldn't be shocked by that. The other one I'll throw at you too, just for S's and G's, is I think that Danton Heinen scores 20 goals.
Okay.
Just whatever. 18 last year, right?
It's close.
He was close. And I know, things are what they are. Guys are going to get hurt, like you said. He's going to get time in the top 6 when that happens, because I think he's the best equipped player for it. The lack of special teams hurts him, but that's my third and final bold prediction for you, is Danton Heinen comes back and does it again for us at a ridiculously low value and comes out with one of the best value contracts in the National Hockey League this year.
That's perfect. And what was your Jarry one? I don't know if you fully said it.
I just would say, like, I think analytically, right, like from goals saved above average and stuff like that, I think he's gonna be in the top, like somewhere around 5 or 6 in the league this year. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know that I would, like, Vezina discussions are usually limited to 3, right? So I think he'll be outside of that. I think that he may receive a couple of votes here or there, but overall, though, I think just again, like a very solid year living inside the top 10 of most of the major goaltending metrics. Why is it though? I don't know, man. It's so weird. Like saying that, I feel like people are already chirping me on Twitter, and the show's not even out yet. But like, y'all need to just go back and look at your history real quick. Like, it's just like I don't know why people like I've said positive things about Jarry going into this year and always receives this hugely negative reaction. Which I think is still driven off of that bad playoff performance 2 years ago, which is fair. He didn't have a chance to shake that off last year. I think if he had, people tweeted me last year, Hunter, over and over again, I only care about what happens in the playoffs. And my response to that was always fair, fine. Like, let's wait. We'll see what happens when we get there. And then he gets robbed of the chance to play. So I think that would have put a lot of it to bed. If the Penguins were to, just cruise through New York in 5 on the back of his strong performance in that top line, nobody'd care that I just said that. No one would care. But now they care because he didn't have that opportunity. So it'll be another long year of 82 games of what do you do for me in the playoffs talk when it comes to Tristan Jarry. That's me channeling my inner angry Yinzer, by the way.
Hopefully he will, actually be able to get to the playoffs fully healthy this time. But I like that one too. Real quickly, I'll ask you this one. Who's getting the first goal of the season on Thursday?
Ooh, who's getting the first goal of the season on Thursday? I'm going to go with Sidney Crosby.
Okay.
First shift, early. The Coyotes are a mess. Get out there, get one of those ESP goals where you're, subconsciously mind linked with Jake Gensel and distributing him pucks 5 seconds ahead of where everybody else is in the game. So that's my prediction. That's very specific. I just went very specific there.
I love that.
But I'm taking Sid. Yeah.
Trying to think. Okay, I'm gonna give mine.
And you gotta, here's the other thing too, Hunt. We let's make sure, and this is just a PSA for the people that listen to your fine program. Let's make sure we really take some time and enjoy Sidney Crosby, maybe in this first game. Maybe Evgeni Malkin and Letang too. Take a night where you don't complain about anything. And you just sit down and you just watch them play and you say, this is great. You enjoy yourself. Maybe you have an alcoholic beverage. Maybe you don't. That's fine. I don't care. But just give yourself one night of enjoyment. And say, the band's back together, right? gonna sit down. I'm gonna take this
Exactly. You know, they've almost played together for 20 years at this point. We've been ridiculously
It's
spoiled
crazy.
during this era. Go out and watch three of the best players to ever suit up in this for this franchise. And I think Sid, I don't know if this is a bold prediction. I think he's gonna hit close to 100 this year, 100 points. I should say he was on pace to do it last year, had he not had
Yeah.
COVID and the wrist injury and stuff.
Well, and then like I said too, look what he did in the playoffs.
Oh.
Hunter. I mean, that was like, I tweeted out that like it felt unfair to have to like watch Crosby get derailed by a hit to the head twice in his career when he was playing, some of his best hockey. That was on another level. It was the kind of performance that reminded me of what I saw in Nashville in 2017 when he literally drugged the team to the cup and just took the game over and started dunking on PK Subban and the whole team, over and over again. We're not that far removed from the playoffs, Hunter, right? Like that wasn't that long ago. Father Time, I don't think is just suddenly coming in the night and swept Sidney Crosby away from us. I think we're going to get a lot more of the same this year.
I'm definitely excited about him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
My first goal, Jesse, I'm going to go off the box. I'm going to go Rickard Rakell gets it, actually. I think he's
Yeah, I think that too.
I think he's playing on the top line. They're going to really see how that small sample size from last year carries over, has that wicked shot, great skating ability with the Penguins. I think he's going to, get one from about, I think 10, 15 feet out. I think it's not going to be super close, but I think it's going to be,
that
close
Kunitz range.
Yeah. Yes.
That old overtime of the Eastern Conference Final Game 7 range there.
Oh, man. No, what a moment. I think, right around that spot. I think maybe on the right side of the ice. Yep. This time, that right-hand shot. Last thing I got for you before I let you go.
Yeah.
How do you see this team finishing in the division, and how do you see them faring in the playoffs?
I think that Carolina wins the division, Hunter. So I think that's that. I took that away as a gimme. I think not a gimme. I think they'll do it uncomfortably. I think the Penguins and the Capitals are the next two in line. I just don't know what order they're going to finish in. I think that they'd probably be likely that they finish with the same number of points. I wouldn't be shocked by that. I'm going to give to the edge of the Penguins because of some of the injury troubles that the Capitals have and some of the depth they're going to have to call on in the early part of the year. But I think that you're looking at Carolina, Pittsburgh, Washington, and New York. If I had to go in a direction, that's what I'm going. You could probably move the Rangers and Capitals potentially. I think that all of those teams, you'll be able to throw a blanket over them. And outside of Carolina, Hunter, you could probably take those three and mix them up in any order, and I wouldn't be surprised. I think they'll all finish very close to each other. I do this thing every year mentally where I doubt the Penguins really hard for a while, most of the summer, and then the models come out and remind me that I shouldn't do that. And that's the stage I'm in right now, is the models are saying you're dumb for doing that. Don't. I mean, like there are some models that are coming out that think this team might even win the division. So they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to be right in there. They've got to take care of business in the Metro. They got to take care of business in the Metro against the bad teams in the Metro, right? That's the big key for me, is to be able to beat up on Philadelphia, which is great to say, to be able to beat up on the Islanders, to get those games in against Columbus. And
if they can somehow beat the Devils more than one time in a season, that would be great.
That'd be unbelievable. They're going to be a tough out. They're going to be even tougher out this year. So, that's what I think. I think they're going to be somewhere in that top, that second or third position.
And then you have, and obviously you have them making the playoffs. You have them winning a round, two, or not sure yet.
I think that this group, Hunter, has one long run left in it. And I think this is probably the year, this year or the next year is the one that we're going to get that long run. It probably should have been last year. I don't think they can win the cup. I think what you have is a handful of really good cup contenders, right? A handful of them, both conferences. And then the very next group, the Penguins are at the top. They're at the top of that tier that you don't consider contenders for the Stanley Cup. But they're very good, and they're that team that you're like, hey, if they get in, right, anything can happen, right? Anything can happen. They know how to win, and that's sort of the discussion. So it all comes down to health, man. That is the end all be all for this group. If they can stay healthy, they can keep themselves in it. There you go. So
Well,
my
I think,
cat has come.
yeah,
My
I was,
cat
I was about to
has, my
comment.
cat
The
has
cat,
come
the
to give
cat is
hot
loving
takes.
this. I think
Yeah,
the cat's loving the discussion here.
yeah. Or he's about to attack me. One of the two. I don't know.
He's eyeing you. I don't know what
Yeah.
he's doing there, but
It's Mike.
yeah, again, man, I really do appreciate you coming on. This was a great discussion, almost an hour. We probably could have gone for another hour.
Oh, for
or
sure.
two, but I don't want your cat to just maul you there.
No, he's not going to. He's just looking
no.
for some attention, right?
No, I'm just messing. I actually saw him earlier coming down the stairs. I was like, oh, he's probably gonna come up there at some point. And
Yeah.
sure enough.
This is his second podcast today, so he's getting irritated.
He's
I
like,
think he's
like,
getting
come
mad,
on.
yeah.
He's like, come on,
Let's
Dad.
wrap
What
this
are you
thing up and
doing?
get to the treats. Yeah.
Jesse, how about you tell the listeners what you got cooking at the Athletic and all that stuff?
Yeah, so I got the regular old stuff at the Athletic, video analysis and breakdown. I got a new gig this year I'm doing too, so you can find my work. I will be talking about anything other than the Penguins at McKean's. So all the video breakdowns I do at the Penguins, you also be able to read that at McKean's this year for the rest of the National Hockey League. I'm filling in for Rachel Dory on the Stefan Graf podcast at the Hockey News, so you can check that out with me and Mikey Stevens. And then I have my own podcast with Pat and Mike Darnay, Dying Alive. We brought that back from the dead for the season, resurrected that bad boy, did a show today. We got to get you on there. Got to get you on Dying Alive soon and have you as a guest. But that's it. That's it.
You've been saying that, Jesse, for like a year.
Dude, I have.
These blank promises, man.
Well, Hunter, we only do 2 shows a year.
Yeah.
So, and this one we already did 1. So you only have 1 show left this year before we get you in. So the booking is just so thin, That's it.
Yeah. 1 down, the 1 to go. So I'll have to see if I get maybe like a 50%.
Work smarter, not harder, baby. That's it.
This has been a blast, Jesse. Really appreciate you coming on. I'll have another episode for you all on Tuesday. Nick Berlansky and Nick Horwath of Tip of the Iceberg will actually be joining the show for the first time in, I think, well over a year. Great to have them on. Wednesday, we'll do a game preview of the game against the Coyotes. Thursday will be a recap. And then Friday, we'll be previewing the game against Tampa Bay. And that episode will probably take place somewhere in the 4-1-2 before I go to the game on Saturday. So I can't wait for that. But again, Jesse, thank you so much for coming on. And for the listeners, I'll talk with you all on Tuesday.